Hey guys, welcome back. In this episode, we're not going to talk to anybody here. We're going straight to the house first. Let me see my inventory here. Okay.
Trust me. You've got people who owns and people nobody sees who do the real work.
And my sister is a queen in this scenario. Perfect.
Point, missing it. Oh well.
Hard to believe they left me nothing.
Well, Mother was pretty steamed when you ran off with your Ferelden apostate.
I'm still their daughter, their eldest.
Okay, so what I had planned is getting all these. Apostate, take off. The cardinal rules of magic. He must not be under the misapprehension that the magic is all powerful. There are limits, and not even the greatest mage may overcome them. No one, for instance, has found any means of traveling, either over great distance or small ones, beyond putting one foot in front of the other. The immuable nature of the physical world prevents this. So no, you may not simply pop over to Marathis to borrow a cup of sugar, nor may you magic the essay you forgot in the apprentice dormitory to your desk. You will simply have to be prepared. Similarly, even when you send your mind into the Fade, your body remains behind. Only once has this barrier ever been overcome. And rapidly, the spell requires 2/3 of lyrium in the Deventer Imperium, as well as lifeblood of several hundred slaves. The results were utterly disastrous. Finally, life is infinite. A truly great healer may bring someone back from the very precipice of death, when breath and heartbeat have ceased, but the spirit still clings to life. But once the spirit has fled the body, it cannot be recalled. There is no failing of your skills or power. It is simply reality. From the lectures of First Enchanter Winsolis. Okay, the long track. Malcolm would never tell his wife or younger children where he was from. It was a tale that forever gave him nightmares. When their love was still fresh, Leanna once pressed him on the subject. All he would say, "Freedom is a price, is never cheap." But that was 100 leagues and a lifetime ago. His haunted gaze lingering on his favorite boots, and would say no more. In Kirkwell, Malcolm met Leandra, and despite all the common sense, courted her. The few times Leandra managed to slip away from her family, Malcolm showed her a whole new world, something completely different from her cloistered existence. It was dangerous, forbidden, and she quickly fell madly in love with the dashing Malcolm Hawke. These stolen moments would end all too soon. One day, while fighting the Carta on the docks, Malcolm used magic to save the life of the Crimson Order leader. The Kirkwall Templars were alerted, but Malcolm wouldn't flee the city without seeing his love one last time. He decides to meet her at the masked ball for the visiting Orlesian Empress. Disguised in Orlesian robes, Malcolm slipped past the Templars to dance with his love. At the end of the night, Leandra would not hear his goodbyes and chance at happiness rather than face her gray prearranged future. Malcolm and Leandra ran into the night and never looked back. Malcolm and Leandra fled across the waking sea to a new life away from the cold shadows of the gallows. It took some time doing, but the vastness of Ferelden allowed them to fall beneath the notice of their Templar pursuers. They settled in a small village of Lotharing, where Malcolm made every effort to ensure that his children did not fear magic and were well insulted against those who did. Malcolm had picked up a trick or two here and there, and this decipherable simple staff shows the breadth of his knowledge, more on an ongoing project than a specialist tool. It is the handiwork of someone comfortable with the life he must live, for as long as he was granted the opportunity to live it. Read all those. Read that. And that. I don't think we read this one. Kirkwall is built on a solid foundation of greed and human suffering, and his underworld is a place where everything is for sale and everyone is fair game. There are many criminal empires within the city, some of which have been around since the Imperium used Kirkwall as a hub in the slave trade. Alliances, spying, manipulation, betrayal, and open warfare is commonplace in the never-ending struggle for power. The coterie is Sea Guild, and my stuff just froze, sorry guys, is the Sea of Guilds that has been around for almost a century, but until the recently was never a major player in the underworld. Some 20 years ago, the strongest of the location criminal empires was an ancient guild known as the Severin, but the leader was betrayed from within. During that turmoil, the coterie made a successful grab for power. Since then, they sunk their claws into every level of Kirkwall, including the city guard, the Door Merchants Guild, and some of the most influential citizens in the city. It is safe to say that the coterie gets a slice of every pie, and little goes on in Kirkwall that escapes their notice. From In the Pursuit of Knowledge, the Travelogue Chantry Scholar by Brother Jenna TV. An honest answer regarding apostates. A mage who does not receive the teaching of the circle and who does not have the words of Andrea Steinhardt. We read this one. And we read Darkspawn. Okay. And we read those. Okay. Now, okay, let's do this here. I want to store what I want. So this is two handle. I want to put this on Brother and Fenris. Aveline's already got hers. There is... Okay. This is the one for Sebastian. Call of Nature, I always put on. is... It's not in here yet? Fenris, Sebastian, Meryl. Ha 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 ha. There. Isabel. Okay. Healing staff. Anders. Am I forgetting anybody? Brother. Fenris. Isabella. Aveline has hers. Don't care about Varric. Sebastian. Okay. We got them all. Alright. Now. 15. 17. 6. 17. 7. 13. 9. 13. Okay. Save. 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 And save. Back. Okay. I like the 2 addition. And I like the addition here. Don't like the outfit, but hey. Can't be too picky. This one here is good too. But I like giving health to people. Like these ones are really good too. Actually, I'd rather do this one. For Sebastian. Open. Give me that back. Where is it? It just fits. And as we're not really going to be too worried about him coming with us. Rogue. 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 Okay. Oh, we're holding that. Back. Surprise, all this fits. Okay. Oh, Miss Marks. Rogue. Human Varric. Isabel. Sebastian. Varric. Okay, what we should do is we'll read this. Letter from a thrall. Hawk, your year's up and you're free to go. Despite what you think, we had a good thing working together. I might pass along an opportunity or two if you're willing to get your hands dirty. Stay safe, a thorough. Right. The Black Emporium. Greetings. You do not know who I am, but I have heard of you. I understand you might need items from my collection, as well as the means to obtain them. I do not extend this invitation to anyone, but you are not simply anyone, are you? Consider this an invitation to the Black Emporium. Enclose are directions through the passages of the undercity, or underneath the city, as the charm to enter. If you give the charm to another, permission will immediately be revoked and will consequently will be unpleasant. Adieu, Xenon. Okay. Whoa. Alright, Fiona. Duncan became Ferelden's commander of the Grey in 910. Dragons assumed the mantle of the commander Polar, under whom he has served since the Order restoration in Ferelden. Polar, who hailed from Antiva, had built an ambitious relationship with the King Callahan. She overcame many objections of the Tanlogan, who had argued strenuously against the Order returning. After all, the Grey Wardens had attempted to overthrow the Ferelden throne centuries before. When Polar disappeared, perhaps recalled to Weishaupt, although none in Ferelden saw her leave, nor have seen her since. Duncan bequeathed to her son a silverite axe of great value. Duncan said he had wielded it and a twin in the younger days, back when he had been a far different man. He named the axe Fiona, and a warden who simply inspired him and suggests that the son ought to take the similar aspiration from his mother. It is unknown what became of Polar's son, other than that he fled Ferelden during the same blight in which Duncan perished. The Arms of the Riverdane. The Battle of the Riverdane is among the most famous in Ferelden's history, fought at an onset of the Dragon Age in a bid to secure the country's independence from Elysian rule. The Ferelden army was cobbled together from commanders and bands who had turned against the Elysian usurper, King Medrin. Even so, under the leadership of Logan McTeer, the scored an outstanding victory against a large force of chevaliers fording the Riverdane. Afterwards, Logain was hailed as a Ferelden legend, and for the time, veteran of the battle enjoyed similar status. The soldiers' possessions became prized mementos, in particular the suits of armor belonging to those who joined Merrick after death of his mother Mora, the rebel queen. Folk tales suggest that the Maker's bleeding lives on in the armor those brave allies who wore that fateful day. Bard's armor. A curious thing, parent. I found an axe among Callahan's belongings, wrapped in the damaged cloth, and initially I thought it might be another gift from Elysian harlot. It was a pretty enough thing, and the markings on the blades certainly seemed imperial. I even wanted so far as to confront Callahan with it, and do you know what he said? The axe was of personal importance to his father, so why wasn't it buried with his ashes? I asked. Because my mother wouldn't have approved. I wonder if he was lying, but Callahan's terrible at it. I did some digging, and are you aware there was an Evelyn woman seen in Merrick's company shortly before the Battle of Riverdane? There was a rumor. I understand that there were lovers and that she was a bard. Was Mark being blackmailed? I wonder if this has anything to do with the mysterious beneathment to those Elven families in Olay. Of course, I had Callahan dispose of the axe immediately. From the letter written by Queen Honora of Ferelden, 927 Dragon. The Lombard of Avernus. We investigated the area as per instructed. It seems Warden Freno is correct. It is once a dwarven fortress that one of our scouts called Calabas. Regardless, it has fallen to ruin in the taint now. Despite Freno's description, there were no darkspawn to be found. If there ever present, they have since moved on, which, if you ask me, seems highly unlikely. Her tale of this darkspawn who speaks must be a product of feverish imagination. There are no signs of the liberty in the fortress, nor any indication that the Grey Warrens or King Merrick were there at all. One of my men did, however, find something in a section of the deep roads not far away, a longboar of Avar origin. Amidst the darkspawn corpus, the age being hard to judge, considering how the creatures deteriorate, I suspect the bow belonged to Heap Ap Morgan, the warden who sacrificed himself to facilitate Fiona's escape. If so, he put up an impressive fight. We found no evidence of his body, sadly. I shall send the bow to you in Weishaupt, from a letter found on the body of a courier killed by bandits in the Anerthals, 920 Dragon. Oops, oh well. Robes of the Pretender. As the Chantry holds on to the kingdom's grow, and Alno's rebel mages were claimed one by one, the great Callahan came to regret letting the circle form in his kingdom. Certainly he missed his old friend's counsel. And then Callahan disappeared, leaving the crown and kingdom to his unborn son. One story says that he tracked down Martel the Evasive, the only one of Elrond's apprentice who was never captured. Callahan managed what the Templars could not, and found the mage. He asked Martel one of Alcon had fled to, but Martel refused him. The next night the king asked again, and was again refused, so he began to tell Martel his whole life story. After a few weeks, the king reached to the end of his tale, and Martin heard the regret in the king's words. So the mage broke his solemn vow and took Callahan where his old master had gone. Callahan thanked him and left to find his truest friend. Whether Callahan ever found Adon, what they said, and whether they made amends, only the Maker knows. But that was the last one anyone saw of our king, from the story told and retold many times by apprentices in the Circle Tower of Ferelden. Wisdom's Eye. Although his vestments are legendary, Alon also weaved many subtle and potent enchantments into his cap during the years he fought against the Circle Tower of Ferelden. He claimed he could use Wisdom Eye to even see the future. Certainly that innumerable times he and the other rebel mages escaped Templars led some credence to the claim. When Aladdin's band number fewer than the fingers on one hand, he donned his hat and meditated a few days. When he awoke, he said the Maker and the Circle had won, and bade his apprentices run. He was never heard from again. Freedom's Promise. As Callahan grew into a man, one great contested issue separated him from Adon, Callahan's faith. As ambivalent as Callahan was on some topics, never would he back down from the matters of honor or Andrastite. Eldon believed, only Eldon knew, but he most certainly did not believe in the Maker. The friends' arguments grew only hotter as the years passed. But that aside, the union of Callahan's peerless honor and Eldon's ingenuity overcome every obstacle set before them. Rivals turned into friends, treacheries were uncovered, and impossible battles won. But as we turned to the Tan Semen, no one rested easy. Tan Semens outnumbered us many times over. He controlled the holy city of Denerim. Many great and terrible warriors had sworn him to him fealty. Oh goodness. Eldon convinced a plan to enlist the strong alliance, and Callahan went into the Brazilian forest to make it so, but unbeknownst to the mage. Callahan made his contact with the Chantry. When Callahan returned to at the head of the Ash Warriors as Adalin expected, so as well did Templars and Circle Mages join our host. Alan was infuriated, such as I've never seen. He wanted a kingdom of free men, of moral people beholden to law. Whether a common man could tend to his land's safety and in peace. He lifted his staff, and his voice echoed through the halls. A civilization could not be civil if it condones the slavery of another, and that is what the circle is. But by accident of birth, those mages would be free to live, love, and die as they choose. The circle will break, if it be 1 year, a decade, a century, or beyond. Tyrants always fall, and the downtrodden always strives for freedom. Then Autumn left. Although Lady Shanna slew Simon that day, and Callahan ruled a united kingdom, my liege was not the same without his mentor and friend. We live in the kingdom built on the dreams of the two great friends, and we are all lessened by Autumn's departure. From the Recollections of Sir Dennis, Banner Knight of King Callahan. To all appearances, he was a hedge wizard hailing from the Frostbacks, perhaps Amaranthi, but from the wild lands if so. Venerable, certainly worth of respect, but not commanding it. When he stormed into my master's feast hall and offered his services in resounding voice, there was laughter at his audacity. Several bondsmen offered to remove the miscreant, but before they could grab him, the mage lifted his staff, and the bondsmen fell to the ground. Each time they stood, they slipped again, and their antics were met with laughter. Altan the Elder, who was not long for this world, demanded to know who this arrogant invader was. I am the beginning of the end. I am Luckbinder, Spellweaver, and the Keeper of Secrets, and I am here to build a kingdom. I am Alan the Wise, and if you haven't heard of me yet, never can you say the same again. His voice boomed, silencing all. His magic was potent, and the halls gave him a weary look. Tennant accepted him as his advisor that day. Then, when Tennant the younger rose to his father's seat, he took Alan into his service as well. I sat with the mages in many councils, and although his magecraft was greater than even the Deventer mages, many believed his advice to be folly. He had little apparition for the hard truth of our lands, they said. Compassion, mercy, justice, they mattered not when Tan Simon invaded your lands, subvert your nobles, and take what's yours. He grew bitter and impatient with us and ours, and these sentiments were often returned, but others could see he had a vision of something better than the endless petty war of the Tans and Arls. When Arl Mandarin besieged us, a youth named Callahan was sent to meet the asp, but all the aspects of treacherous end, yet the boy returned to great acclaim and announced that there would be no terms. Alan was taken with foolhardy honor. The boy displayed and seemed to be awakened as from a dark dream. The mage told Tennant the Young he would lend his aid for this battle, but after that he would serve another. Tennant accepted his resignation with relief more than anything. By the end of the siege of the Western Hills, Arl Tennant was no more. It was Callahan who defeated Mandarin in a single combat and became the Tan Callahan. Auden was named his chief advisor. From the Recollections of Sir Davith, band knight of King Callahan. Arms of the MacTier. Tan Logain MacTier was not born a nobleman. It is said his family descended from freeholders in the western Banor, a region known as Oswin. His father, Gareth, would have had no surname of his own. He likely would have described himself as of Osran or Ban Athwinian, as regions would have been known in the old tongue. The name MacTier means son of the land. It was bestowed upon Logain by King Merrick after the Battle of Riverdane. The Ferelden people considered the name highly appropriate. To them, King Tan Logain was the son of the entire nation, and he was famously said to have a crowd that Ferelden would forever be part of his blood. After Logain's betrayal of King Callahan at Oscar in 930 Dragon, the general became as reviled as he had once been revered. His manus and ground was looted and many of his personal possessions stolen, among them the armor he wore at the Battle of Riverdane. That armor is said that he had special significance to the man. One particular of the armor was a square of red silk pinned to one of the shoulder belts. For luck, Logain once explained. King Merrick Than, widely regarded as a hero by the Ferelden people for liberating the country from Olesian rule, disappeared at sea while en route to Wycombe in 925 Dragon. Hold on here. That was gross. Okay. He was attending a gathering of the Marcher Lords in an attempt to forge a union in the north. And when he failed to appear, the Free Marchers fell back into petty squabbling that they are infamous for. Tan Logain spent almost 2 years searching for his lost friend, consuming much of the royal treasury and the majority of the Ferelden navy. The search was futile, and when Logain claimed that Ole had purposely sunk King Merrick's vessel in order to prevent Marchers' unity, he was called off by his daughter Queen Honora and a united Banor. It was time to mourn the king, they said, and so in 927 a massive state funeral was held in Denham Chantry. To this day, rumor insists that Merrick is still alive, perhaps held in an Orlesian prison somewhere. The last mystic had increased the value of his personal possessions, leading to the theft of several artifacts from the royal palace. Among these was a helmet said to have been worn by a young Merrick at the disastrous Battle of the West Hills. Black Fox. During the merriest part of the night in any tavern in the land, odds are good you'll hear one of the many tales of the Black Fox, a scoundrel and a hero. The Black Fox misadventures took him and his band throughout Thedas. He blamed for many thefts, a few murders, a revelation, and almost a kingdom-wide civil war, but every one of his deeds were designed to thwart tyranny and oppression. The final tale of the Black Fox tells of him and his band searching for the sunken city of the Elven deep in the forest of Arathan, when he parted with his jerkin in a less than volunteered manner. Hooded Messenger. To the king. He wielded a rebel's bow, strung tight against the heartwood strain too far. It's a tension that cannot last, but it doesn't have to, for the cause must be won or lost while passion still burns. It's a powerful template for revolution, repeated many times across the free marches, but it is born on a battlefield or rhetoric. The message to the king is where the story usually diverges. Sometimes it's a plea for liberty taken a tyrant's heart by the point of an arrow. More often, it is carried in the clatter of sacrifice as a weapon falls to a courtyard cobbles. It depends on the audience. The young like their victories suddenly and violence, while the old prefer something more cautionary. It may be the hood is not so much as a person as a tactic, ushered to far horizons or grave embroidered in order to protect conspirators. After all, how many deaths can he claim when one is the typical limit for a common man? But tales return time and again across leagues and centuries. At certain points, one hopes the name is symbolic, because allies with such power would bring its own problems and depths. From the Rebel of the Marches, Allegory and Rebellion, forward by Phelim, a bard. Jarvia Shank. When the Carter crime boss Merchant fell, his lover Jarvia fought off the rivals, planting the shank into each of their hearts before she emerged as the group's undisputed leader. For years, Jarvia used a mix of brutality, cunning, and blackmail to grow the Carter power until it was threatened the Diamond Quarter itself. When King Eldrin Adukin died, some whispers that Jarvia planned to force the assembly to recognize the rights of the Dusters in Orzammar. Others said she planned to overthrow the nobles entirely. The truth will never be known, though. She was killed in the cold blood by the hero of Ferelden, the Lion's Claw. Foiled at every turn by the infamous outlaw Lady Rosamond, the ever-persistent Tanlogin fled an army to chase the bandit through the Kokoria wilds. Eventually, she was captured near Barshman. Bound, gagged, and in chains, she still managed to escape on the first night using thieves' tools concealed in these gloves. To this day, there is an unclaimed bounty on her head of 1,000 sovereigns. The Rascal Scale by Coinhart. Strangest suit I've ever made. The scales for that fool rascal. No second thoughts needed. A project I wanted to try for years, obviously given my name, right? But I could never find a fool to wear his wealth as protection. This one, though, was daft as a surfer and was paying 2 coins for each that I hammered. And that buys a smile and a nod for any idiot. I guess he's something of a name in his own lands, this rascal, so I can't really question, and I did him my best, like always. Damned Lyrian weave left my fingers numb, though. No sword will get through that, I guarantee, but I bet his children are born pale. From the tales of the craft master in their own words, a record of a Smith Guide archive. Okay, so these are just the items that we're picking up, that we're reading. So, anyway, now that my inventory is completely full, I don't need you guys right now. Welcome to the Emporium. Okay. It's just still updating. Alright.
Customer.
Yes, customer.
Thaddeus, stand straight. Places, everyone.
Alright, new Codex. Xenon the Aquarian. You received the invitation, then you are fortunate indeed. Xenon is no ordinary man, as you discovered for yourself when you entered the Black Emporium. The item you'll see resting in the chair is not one of the display, rather it is a proprietor. It may speak to you, that Sinan, using the mystical baubles that has allowed him to communicate since he lost power of speech. The story tells that Zenon was a Kirkwall noble in the Age of Steel, almost 300 years ago. Obsessed with the pursuit of eternal life, he made a deal with a powerful witch. Some say it's the legendary Antiva Witch of the Wares, and his wish was granted. He obtained eternal life, but not eternal youth. His body became decrepit, and his vast wealth to seek out ways to preserve it. Some were magical, many were dangerous, and almost all of them were unsuccessful. What remains is an immobile mass of twisted flesh, and I think Xenon's mind has all slowly decayed along with his body. He hid away the Undercity and has slowly amassed a collection that's sure to amaze. If he invites you, he thinks you have the coin he needs to further his research for his cure. Just don't think of stealing anything. The golem is not for show. Although you're free to look around the shop, I wouldn't suggest staying over long. You might be presented with one of the baths his servants gives him hourly to keep his flesh from becoming completely decent. Trust me, you don't want this. From a letter of unknown origins, 847 Blessed. Okay. Oops, wrong button.
To the black.
The pickled apples of Arthon. I expressed my incredulity to the shop's assistants, who coldly noted that he did not like my implication. He insisted that every article in the Black Emporium was genuine, no fakes, imitations, or cheap knockoffs. I must have appeared unconvinced, for the assistant narrowed his eyes at me and disappeared into the bowels of the shop. Returning several minutes later, he removed the jar of pickled apples from the display case and proceeded to carefully remove the wax seal from the lid of the jar. I watched with fascination as the jar opened and a single rosy apple pulled from it. It looked as if it had been pickled just that day, as it peaked of ripeness. With a paring knife, the assistants cut the tiniest sliver of the flesh from the apple and presented it to me. The flavor of that one small sliver was astonishing. It was as close to perfect apple as ever there was. I was experiencing the essence of every apple ever eaten, and that ever will be eaten. When it was over, the senses of loss that filled me was so sharp enough to move me to tears. The rest of the apple was returned to the jar, which then was resealed. I paid 5 sovereigns for that single taste, and I believe I got the better part of the bargain. From the letter of the brother Pharrellin Genitivi to Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Yes, we'll take. Not going to keep any of them, but we'll take it. Box of Screamin'. I received the box from a man I met in Silent Plains. He spoke little and would not reveal his name. For reasons I shall not detail here, I've been kidnapped and left for dead in that gray, wind-blast wasteland. After days of walking, I perched and close to death. I was about to dash my head on a rock to speed my passing when the man arrived. He possessed a water skin containing ample water for a person traveling from our location to Imperial Highway. From there, he said I could find my way to Solus or Peridinium. He offered to give me the water skin if I agreed to take 3 things from him: a glowing crystal shard, a bronze spear, and an iron bound box with no hinges. I asked the man if he wishes to have these items delivered. He said that he merely wanted me to have them. It was an odd request, but I took was too weak and too desperate to think much of it, and so I agreed. The man put the items into a leather sack, which he handed me along with the water. "What about you?" I asked. He said nothing, only pointed in the direction from which I had come. "There is nothing that way," I said. He merely smiled at me. I found the Imperial Highway about a day later, and a caravan driver agreed to take me to Bavarium in exchange for the large growing shard. In Pervera, I bartered the bronze sphere for new clothes and a room at the inn. That night, I examined the iron-bound box and found no way to open it. I held it to my ears and thought I heard slowly measured breathing coming from within. My mind was afire with curiosity. I obtained from the innkeeper a large hammer, thinking to smash the thing open. The moment the hammer touched the box, it shrieked. The shrill sound pierced the depths of my soul. I gave the box to the innkeeper in the morning and felt better for having rid of myself of it. A page torn from a mysterious journal on display in the Black Emporium. Okay. Be right back, guys. I'm not gonna let you watch me sell all this. Okay, guys. It's getting a long record here, and I have to go to work today. But we're definitely going to check the rest of this out here before I go. We're gonna be back with more Codex, more equipment here. To the Black Emporium. So, Andraste in the nude repose, invisible. Can stone lies with purpose? Can it beckon with raw female command, yet shining with inspiration virtues? The challenge was possessed to sculptor Enwood de Glass, artist and son of the Empire Voyage of Olay. It was busy work and heretically in time of the excess, but answered he did. With reserved of our nations and possessions unhealthy, his subjects, Our Lady, though not as despicable in tradition century. Arwen's mad ambition summoned the form of Andraste uninterrupted by trappings of war and devotion of vestments she assumed after death. It was living, commanding, obscene, yet inspiring. To gaze upon it was enthralling, spiritually and physically. It was later that alarmed chantry officials. They blanched at the thought of Our Lady being possessed of such a base appeal, even as they too were drawn. The work that could not be destroyed without threatening the balance between empire and the hallowed. So a grave censorship was intact under the guise of honoring. Enchanters were tasked with extending the internal that hides the fade, drawing it around the form like a cloak. Our Lady remains in stone and in the world, but mortal eyes are forever denied her treasure and glory. She is veiled in every sense. As in all things, unentertained consequences must vex those with pure intentions. Modesty will not have been better discerned by the thickness sheet drawn back when the techniques were too studied, as the sculpture's skills are ascendable only to exploring touch, defined in the shape of intimate caress. All matters of strange congress has steamed from the temple hand and innocent wishes for clarity. From art and shame, forbidden wonders of faith by Francis de Petfedefoot, translated by Fulman Abard. Ooh, excuse me, guys. Vase of tears. Although the wax-stoppered vessel is clearly labeled tears shed during the burning of Tresvus, many questions remain, not the least of which is, which burning of Tresvus, with the Cornori conquered it in 635 steel, when it was burning by the liberating armies of the White and Black Divines during the Second Exalt marches of 752 Storm, or when it was accidentally burned to the ground in 862 Blessed after a dockhand knocked over a lantern in the warehouse full of lamp oil. Even assuming the correct events should be determined, the question of those tears have been collected remains, presumably not any of the numerous fire victims. Surviving relationships, perhaps, noble with summer homes on the Antigua coast. It should be noted that nowhere on the label does it say that these tears were shed in relationship to that event, or to the event. So they could have been tears of a woman in Montstamar weeping because she was not asked to dance at the last costume ball, unaware that at this very moment one of the greatest port cities of Thedas was aflamed. From the letter of Brother Ferdinand to Sister Petrine, Chandler Scholar.
Trust.
Okay. Alright, we did those. Alright guys, back home here. Okay. And that is it for this episode. I'm sorry for all the many codexes. Next one will resume. We have 3 more here. So, and then we should be able to get started. See you guys. Bye now.